On episode 294 of the Tennis Files podcast, I'll reveal the winner of my racket bracket battle with Sam Jones from Tennis Express. Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. Really excited to have you back. And I just recorded a really fun interview with my friend Sam Jones from Tennis Express. He is a product specialist in the marketing department there. And if you remember, several episodes ago, as well as being recorded on my YouTube channel, I revealed a racket bracket battle, which consisted of 8 different rackets, and we did a stream with Sam, and we talked about the 8 rackets. And I'm going to reintroduce them on the show, or on the interview portion in just a minute or so. So I won't go and name them all for you, but it was really fun to test all of these different rackets and observe their different properties, what I liked, what I didn't like. And I hope that this gives you some insight into, what types of rackets you might want to try out. So obviously, my profile is being a 5-0 tennis player who likes to hit a heavy forehand with a lot of top spin. My backhand is flatter. I definitely am much more of a baseliner. I feel like my current stick is lacking a little bit of stability, the Pure Aero VS 2017 version. And so I went on a little racket adventure, and the results are going to be forthcoming. So I hope that you really enjoy this episode, and we will have the YouTube version of it on YouTube, of course, about a week after this one airs. So I'll definitely let you know about that one. But yeah, just check in a week from when this airs, or of course, join my newsletter at tennisfiles.com, and then I'll, of course, let you know when that goes up. So hope you enjoy it. And without further ado, here is my racket bracket battle results with Sam Jones from Tennis Express. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the podcast. Really excited to have my friend Sam Jones from Tennis Express, really helpful individual who's been on the podcast before. This is actually a follow-up episode. So it's very exciting where I'll reveal my racket picks. But Sam, thanks for coming back on, and how have you been?
Thanks for having me, Ravon. It's good to hear from you. I've been good. Just another year post Australian Open. Lots of products coming out, and shoes, rackets, the whole thing. So, but yeah, I'm excited to hear the results of your holy grail quest for the right racket.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sam. As I was demoing these rackets, and really appreciate Tennis Express, giving me the opportunity. I was just thinking, like, wow, how cool of a job it is that you guys have. I just being around tennis products and like seeing like the new shiny, rackets and shoes and all that. It's super cool. So definitely a little envious there. But yeah, I'm excited to go through my picks. And just as a reminder, before I bring up the bracket, we had the Pure Aero 2023. We had the Yonex 6th generation V-Core, the Headboom Pro, the T-Fight 305 from Technifiber, the Head Extreme Tour, the V-Core Pro 31097, and the Solinco Whiteout, and then the Blade V8 16 by 19. So really fun play test. I'm going to bring up the bracket now, and I'll obviously talk about it for those of you just listening in audio only. But here it is. Sorry. So this is the original bracket right here, with the 8 pitted against each other. And let me now bring up my picks. So I'm going to just take a second to share the right screen here. All right, here it is. These are my picks. I'll walk you through them, and Sam, really would appreciate your thoughts here. So with the Babolat Pure Aero 2023 pitted against the Yonex 6th Gen V-Core 98, it was kind of a case of just going with what I, previously played with to an extent. So I play currently with as a refresher for you all, if you didn't listen to the previous episode, which I highly encourage you to check out, episode 277 with Sam, is the Pure Aero VS, the Pure Aero VS 2017. And when playing with the Pure Aero 2023, there were some characteristics of that racket that I have that I really enjoyed. Just the aerodynamic properties of it and the great spin that it produces. It was really good with my backhand. Actually, in particular, it was more stable than what I'm playing with now. Really excellent on returns, and I mean, just the power that it brought was really fantastic. VCore 98 was no slouch, certainly. I mean, I did get good spin from it. It's a really solid frame, but for some reason, the sweet spot itself, and maybe this is due to just the different head shape of it, but it just didn't feel quite right for me. I know a lot of players who really enjoy the racket. Actually, when I was playing with it, my doubles partner, he uses that racket. But I just couldn't get used to the feel for whatever reason. And, I just prefer the Puro 2023 for that matchup. So any thoughts on that matchup in particular, Sam?
Well, it's funny. So in our lapse of time since our first video, there's new V-cores.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm laughing a little bit, but producing this stuff takes some time too. I think a big improvement from the previous Pure Aero is they kind of did this different. They always had the Cortex. At first, way back when, it was kind of above the grip, and now the Cortex Pure Feel or whatever was kind of in the racket shaft and head itself. And with this version of the Pure Aero, they did this flax fibers at the 3 and 9 o'clock positions. And really the rackets just, I mean, for my money, felt a lot more comfortable than they had in previous years. And I would still say it's kind of a firmer flex, but like you said, great on returns, very stable for a pretty maneuverable and lightweight frame. And then maybe not some of the kind of harsher, stiffer feel that some of the older Pure Aero models might have had. So yeah, like I think obviously the V-cores are very nice rackets. The one thing I'd say too is I threw the V-core 98 in there because I believe it was a similar weight to your Aero VS, and then of course the regular Pure Aero is a little bit lighter. So it's no shock to me really that the Pure Aero might have been a little bit easier to play and maybe a little bit more familiar with you coming from that, kind of Aero modular beam design.
Yeah, great points. I'm just gonna, put these up on the screen for the YouTube audience here.
Cool.
But yeah, really enjoyed, the play test, and I actually tried the next version, and that was nice too. I felt even better dampening properties on the Yonex, rather, and even more spin actually. I told Sam I was down in Orlando for a bit, and I did like the 98 actually. I liked it more than this current than the version that I have now right here. But yeah, that's an exciting one. And actually the 95 was really nice too. Obviously you have to be more precise, but like the stability was incredible. Like my slices were so stable. A little off tangent here, but definitely you'd want to give the VCore 98 7th gen a twirl, because that one is really nice. Do you have any thoughts on that one, by the way?
Yeah, so I loved, like you said, I mean, the V-cores are one of Yonex's best-selling families, but with the 7th generation, they sort of redid the head shape a little bit, and it's a little bit up higher in the hoop, so I think they're more forgiving. The other thing is that the shaft as well, that the rackets just play more stable, I think, than the previous ones. And yeah, I mean, the V-core is no slouch. I mean, you're talking about, I think, two in the Pure Aero 2023 and the V-cores, you're talking about two of the most prominent, spin friendly, user friendly rackets on the market. So that's a I don't really think you can go wrong there.
Yeah, definitely. So again, really enjoyed that one. Definitely you should check out those rackets. Tennis Express has a great demo program for that. And then the next matchup is the Head Boom Pro versus the Technifiber T-Fight ISO 305, which I also have here, struggling to bring up, but I'll show it a little more in depth in a second on YouTube. But my thoughts here were, I actually really enjoyed the Head Boom Pro. I think the specs were actually very similar to my Pure VS 2017. I felt like the control was really fantastic, where I could put the ball wherever I wanted easily. The feel was really nice. It was also, it felt lighter and very maneuverable to me. I think the one thing that is like big for my game that I didn't feel on this racket, and you can always like mess around with strings and tension and stuff, but I didn't get as much spin on this one as like other frames, and that's definitely kind of important for me. With the Technifiber T-Fight ISO 305, I felt like I got really good spin on it. I got good stability. I also felt like I got more pop. So that was one thing as well I didn't mention with the Head Boom Pro. I felt like maybe the pop wasn't there as much for me, where with the T-Fight 305, I did feel that a good amount of power. The T-Fight was a little bit less maneuverable, but at the same time, overall, I think I just vibed a bit more with the T-Fight, and I liked it, despite the swing weight being a little bit higher. So that's why I chose the T-Fight ISO 305. So any reflections on that one?
So I'm right there with you. I like the Boom Pro a lot, and I used it for a good while, and I think it's one of those tough things that brands have when, like, the Boom is a new racket series from Head, and obviously with a name like Boom, you're thinking some power. And whenever you kind of have like a Boom as your name, you're thinking power. Well, the Boom Pro, like, it's a control racket. I mean, it really is. Like, it's maybe more powerful than something like a Prestige, but it offers a unique feel. But it's to me, like, I switched to it kind of looking for a little bit of a boost in power from the racket that I had, and I was sort of left, man, like, I would have thought this had more power. But I think the Boom Pro offers a lot more control, especially kind of for flatter hitters than people are expecting it to. But that being said, like, I think the Boom MP is probably the best of that series, just because it does offer just a little bit more dynamic power, spin. It's got a little bigger head size too, and I think that even a small difference there can make a huge change. As far as the T Fight, the ISOFlex that they put in there was really an improvement from the previous generation, in my opinion. It just sort of made the sweet spot of the racket, um, not the sweet spot. It made the response off of the string bed, even if you missed dead center slightly, or if you're a little bit above the sweet spot or a little bit below, you still felt like maybe the ball wouldn't go perfect where you wanted it to go, but it might land a couple of feet within your target. So, like, it's a cumbersome racket at times, but the swing weights offers lots of stability. So if you are in a little bit of trouble and you don't hit dead center, I feel like there's enough mass that kind of can push the ball at least deep in the court and give you a puncher's chance in the next on the next ball. The other thing is, the T Fight has kind of been this 10.8 ounces unstrung, but that swing weight is close to 330. Like, it's sort of one of the first of its kind in that I call it overclocked. Like a computer that you're trying to make supercharged and a lot faster. You got to put a bigger fan in there to make sure it doesn't overheat. And I feel like the T-Fight 305 really is a lighter overall racket, but it's less maneuverable than some rackets that are close as 12 ounces. I mean, it's really it's probably the most stable racket in that weight on the market. And Technifiber has done a good job, I think, with this generation of making it feel just a little bit more comfortable. But it the beam design of that racket too is like it's a control. It's hard to classify it, right? Because it's a control frame. It's got an 18-19 string pattern, but it also is pretty explosive when you get the ball lined up with that thing. There's a lot of weight behind the ball, and I was curious with your ability to hit a lot of spin, and you've mentioned that spin is a big part of your game. A lot of the heavier spinners have kind of not enjoyed the 305 as much because it hasn't felt as whippy, or you can't generate that as much racket head speed maybe as you'd like. But a lot of the flatter hitters have loved just the stability because with shorter backswings you're able to redirect pace, and to each their own for sure. But I'm interested to hear about, did you feel like you could generate a lot of spin with the 305? Was it at all cumbersome when you were preparing? Like, what did you think about kind of the spin generation there?
Yeah, great question, Sam. I did get some feedback that my balls had less spin. And I think, sometimes I'll go in this phase where, if I have a racket that maybe doesn't generate as much spin, like I'll just hit a little bit flatter, and then I'll still I'll enjoy it. But then I need to remember, like, hey, like your normal game, you need to keep that in mind, like when you're testing the racket. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the other properties you mentioned a lot, and like stability is something that it is lacking in my current frame to a degree. So I think that was part of the enjoyability of the racket, and again, like you said, like hit it really being able to redirect and hit flatter, and also I was playing indoors, which I hit a little bit flatter indoors, I'd say, on a
Right.
faster court and stuff. So. But yeah, I mean, for sure, spin generation wasn't as much, but you know, hitting flat was nice.
The last
So
thing I'll say about the 305 too is like with those specs, what do we do? What do you do every point in tennis? You either serve or you return, right? And
yeah,
so like I think the return is something that's so overlooked. But if you've got a racket like the 305, you do feel pretty confident that you can cut the ball off early. You're not just gonna, float a ball back to, as an easy put away. Like there's enough stability there that even with a short backswing, you can really get a lot of confidence in your return. And then as far as the serve, like you get over the top of that thing with that swing weight, and you're gonna get some pop on the ball. So I think a lot of times when people are testing rackets or demoing rackets, they maybe don't spend enough time serving and returning and actually sort of what you touched on, playing points the way you would play them. I think
yeah.
sometimes, you see a racket and you go, oh, this racket is for absolute control. And maybe you try to play more controlled, than you normally would. And I think it's important, like you said, to remember, hey, how do I like to play? And then try to apply that racket to what you like to do on the court. Instead of, for instance, if I'm like, oh, I'm going to use the prestige mid from 20 years ago, I'm going to serve and volley like they used to. And that's fun, but it might not be the best application of my skill set to that racket.
Yeah, thanks for reiterating that. Definitely got to be smart about and practical when you're testing rackets. So it's going to do a quick solo shot of the two rackets here. Yeah, so really nice frame. So thanks again for that. I'm going to filter them out here. So the next matchup we have here is the Head Extreme Tour against the Yonex VCore Pro 97. A very interesting matchup. And, the Head Extreme Tour, it's one thing that made me sad about it. Maybe it was just, I don't know if it was my particular stick or, what it was, but I loved the spin. Fantastic. Maneuverable, very maneuverable and whippy. Loved it. It was also nice and light. The one thing, and let me know what you think, Sam, about the Extreme Tour. For some reason, it felt a bit hollow to me, and I think maybe with more time, I could have gotten used to it. But when I was warming up and hitting ground strokes and whatnot, even though there was a little bit of a hollow feel for me, I enjoyed it, and I was like hitting really well. And then when I was returning, especially when I wanted to like block back the return, like for some reason, like the feel just wasn't there, because otherwise I would have, really loved this racket, and I think it would have gone farther, to be honest. But yeah, and obviously, there's some great players that play with it. So, I mean, it's just, personal preference, but, the Extreme Tour, really fun demo, just that feel for me, kind of was tough. And then the, VCore Pro 310, really nice stick. Correct me if I'm wrong. Does TFO play with this one? But
Mhm.
yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so great control, really solid feel, great at net as well. I guess the one thing I would say is for me, it didn't generate as much spin as some of the other rackets, including the Extreme Tour.
Right.
So again, if it wasn't for the feel of the Extreme Tour, I actually would have picked that one. But I guess, because the V Core, like for me, the feel was a bit better. I actually went with that. So it was
Okay.
just a confidence thing. So yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are. I mean, I assume you've probably hit with the Extreme Tour and obviously the other, the V Core Pro 310, 97. So any thoughts?
Yes, I think starting with the Extreme Tour, I wanted that one in there because it really is like a modern version of the racket that you play. Like it's
Yeah.
very similar as far as the specs, the head size. I think the string pattern might be missing one cross string
Yeah. 20.
compared to yours, but so, and I think you kind of mentioned, your current racket is not the most stable racket. It is very whippy. It's very fast. It's, a racket that if you're in trouble, you can kind of flick across the ball and,
Yeah.
maybe kind of cheat a little bit when you're in
Yeah.
trouble. We all kind of like that at times. But I don't think your assessment, I think the Extreme Tour is comfortable, but I don't think it was um, in there to really give you anything that you weren't able to sort of feel from your current model. So I kind of had that in there as like a control, if you will,
Yeah.
sort of a modern version of your racket. It is a very spin friendly frame. And it's going back to our thing. It's kind of fun to just bash some heavy balls with and just
Yeah.
watch the ball jump off the court. Like it's pretty fun. The other
Mhm.
thing in that frame is it's got those kind of bigger grommets at the top. And I do feel like there's a lot of marketing out there, but I do feel like that makes sense to me. Bigger grommets, more string movement, so you're going to get a lot of spin. The VCore Pro, for me, this was a really good update this current generation because they went with a slightly thicker beam on the 97s. Sorry, on the VCore 97, the 310, and the heavier one. And I believe they also went with a slightly thicker beam on the 100. And for a control frames, it gave these rackets a little bit more, I just think, accessibility to, some intermediate players or even some advanced players that just wanted a little bit of help compared to the previous generations. But, at that weight, it's a really good balance between, stability, mobility. It really kind of makes sense. A guy who has a game like Francis, it's crazy fast racket head speed. He exhibits a lot of feel. He gets into the net a lot. It's just a very well-rounded stick. I think I'd agree with you on the spin. You can get adequate spin, but it's not really designed, and it's not going to give you as much rotation maybe as some of these super aerodynamic rackets with very open patterns. But no, it's a really good frame. Both of these are, I think, kind of like what you said. Sometimes, a feel of a racket, it's just not vibing with you, and you got to make a call. So no apologies. You just move on down your racket journey.
Yeah, definitely, Sam. And yeah, I mean, also again to kind of reiterate, I think it's really important, like obviously for me, like I really, spin is an important part of my game, but you have to think about what you like. So maybe, maybe for you, you'd want to go a different route with this bracket. But yeah, no, again, super fun. Like you said, I was having so much fun with the tour, but just the feel for me. But yeah, VCore Pro is really a lovely racket and great feel, and so that's why that one progressed. So I will filter these out real quick here. Oh, actually, let me do a solo shot first again of the sticks.
Man,
All
rackets
right.
sure are looking good these days. The,
Yeah,
the
they are.
cosmetics really are they've really started to evolve and I don't know, they just it seems like they're all each time a new one comes out, at the very least the looks are really, really cool.
Yeah, there's always that, and that definitely can factor into your choice sometimes. I mean, it's hard to not have that be a factor to some extent. So
Right.
let's see. Yeah. So the next, sorry, just moving rackets here. So the next matchup, as you can see on the screen, if you're watching on YouTube, is the Salenko Whiteout 305 versus the Wilson V8 Blade 16 by 19. Very tough matchup, to be honest. First off, I remember trying the whiteout actually maybe like 5 or 6 months ago. I forget at this point. No, maybe longer. But and I really, really enjoyed it. Like just a really nice racket. What I love about it is it's very whippy to me. I get actually great spin. I think maybe the maybe slightly below the Extreme Tour is this one would be second place for spin. Very maneuverable. That obviously goes along with the whippiness of the racket, and it just gives the ball like it gives a great shape, or I get a great shape on my ball, especially on the forehand. And as we mentioned too, like I like the looks of it. Just sleek white paint on it. So yeah, I really like that racket. And then with the blade, I've always loved the blade. I tried the previous, or maybe two versions of the blade a couple years ago. Previous one, 18 by 20 and 16 by 19, and like the feel on it is has always been so nice. I almost think about it as like a knife, however weird that sounds. Like just like the slice and the volleys, and it's so nice, and it has a nice blend of everything. Really excellent feel, great pop. Control is very good. Spin was pretty good, and I did find that the blade actually had more pop than some of the other frames, like the Boom Pro, for example. And even I think the VCore Pro. So that this was a pretty tough one, but I found that due to the whippy nature and the spin, that I actually chose the whiteout. So obviously on screen here for y'all watching on video. So yeah, those are my thoughts. And any thoughts on your end, Sam?
Um, well, I'm seeing a little bit of a trend. The whiteout in my mind has kind of a similar vibe as the Technofiber T-Fight 305. I think they're both very stable for the weight. Um, the whiteout has maybe a little bit more of a traditional beam shape on it, but you know, um, I don't know. I don't know if I ever thought the whiteout was whippy, but again, a lot of that is sort of the user. The user's going to decide about that feel. Um, I will say on your blade comments, I think there's more power in the blades than people realize, and it is a control racket, but there's some serious power to be had, and that's probably why it's one of the most versatile used frames in the college game and in the pro game. Um, Salenko's racket, I think maybe has, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's got kind of a higher swing weight there, a little bit higher
Yeah.
towards 330. So again, at that weight, it's going to be pretty stable. But the whiteout's a good racket. Both of those, that's super close. I mean, that's almost like you said, maybe the white paint job did it. Maybe the
Yeah.
the cosmetic did it, but those are very close frames. The one uh, the one thing I wasn't sure if you'd like it, but I guess it sort of makes sense, is that Solinko's a little firmer on the flex than the blade. The blade has been
Yeah.
pretty soft, pretty comfortable, pretty arm friendly flex. So I guess the racket you play right now is sort of medium firm. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's correct, Sam, but you
Okay.
are right. I think I like the firmer feel. That was kind of one thing. Is I'll actually get into it with as we,
Right.
shave down the contestants. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, so awesome. Great feedback. Quick close up of these rackets. All right. So yeah, and I was gonna say too that, I mean, again, the blade, I really like the blade, to be honest. I mean, the blade would have beat the VCore 98 probably for me. Definitely would have beat the Boom Pro. Um, you know, yeah, it would have won like a decent amount of matchups. So it's one of those where it unfortunately drew a higher seed, essentially. Um, yeah.
Who made that draw? Come on.
Yeah. Definitely not Sam.
Well,
um,
some rackets didn't get their seating info in time. So,
yeah, it's got to be quicker, Mr. Wilson.
right.
But yeah, so super fun matchups. Now let me go to my next bracket that I made so we can see the results here. So let me just transition really quick.
It's interesting, the rackets that you've got left are pretty similar in weight. Three of them are at that 10.8, 10.9, and then you still have the arrow, which
Yeah.
is obviously coming in a little bit lighter, but I think it kind of speaks to your credentials, like you're sort of honing in on, hey, I think that's my wheelhouse.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Yeah, definitely interesting to see the how it's going, and I am starting to narrow it down to like a similar property. So yeah, I wonder how surprised you are with these results. I mean, especially with the pure arrow and the T fight, which I'm trying to slyly arrange and doing a bad job of.
It's
But
not
yeah.
it's not easy to pick up rackets on camera. I know from experience.
Yes, thank you, Sam, for coming to my defense here. And you're probably hearing clinking, although you probably don't mind because tennis players love the sound of rackets. But yeah, so the Pure Arrow 2023 against the Tecnifiber T Fight ISO 305. Again, definitely recommend you demo these from Tennis Express. But this honestly, it came down to the feel for me again. So, the PA23, a lot of great properties as we discussed, excellent on the returns, like easy power. Um, I did find it to be like a little less maneuverable in the air compared to my old frame, but I also felt the same with the T Fight as well. Um, but yeah, I think it was the dampened feel of the PA23, which again, a lot of people like, I'm sure. I didn't like that feel as much as I did of the T Fight. I felt like that was a little bit firmer. I don't know. Would you say that, Sam?
So we're getting into, some basically racket technologies now where, it
Yeah.
used to be if something is a certain flex rating, it's either stiff or, it's soft or it's muted or, whichever adjective you want to use. And I feel like um, there's more to the story now. The brands have, comfort and dampening technologies that they're building in. I think one of the things that happens with a racket company like Babolat that, the Pure Arrow has been so great for so long, and it's been a firmer flex, and it's been powerful and spin friendly. And I think maybe in their effort to sort of recruit some of those players who didn't appreciate that firmer feel as much, they might have alienated some of those players that liked the stiff and light and pretty raw feedback. So kind of to each their own. I would say I liked the newer Pure Arrow better because I appreciate a little bit more comfort and dampening. I think as far as this matchup goes, I think it's really two very different rackets. And it's kind of the reason I wanted to do this bracket with you because, you're coming from a racket that is spin friendly and you can attack with spin, it's pretty maneuverable, pretty whippy. And what you've chosen here, kind of in both sections of your bracket, we'll get to the other one in a second, but it's just, I feel like you might be looking for some stability in your game. The ability to handle and absorb and redirect pace. And I think you're looking for maybe some solutions to that in your next racket. And as far as stability and kind of just able to fight off pace and I think a good blend of comfort, but also kind of that crisp feel that you don't want something too soft. I think the T-Fight ISO makes sense here. I think, if you were seriously trying to improve your net clearance and, spin generation, you might say, oh, well, I'm looking for something different. The Pure Aero is probably a little bit an easier route for me, but I think obviously you're trying for more stability, a little bit of weight, maybe at the expense of some maneuverability, but it seems like you've kind of honed in on what you're looking for, and I can't really have a quarrel with your choice here. Again, both rackets are great in their own right, but the T-Fight's a good choice.
Yeah, thanks. It's just really tough thing. And yeah, I guess sometimes when you're, like you mentioned, when you're trying to find a new racket, you like gravitate towards like, oh, what am I missing? And then you just like really like, oh, this racket has it. Like I like this one better. So yeah, who knows? I mean, maybe, yeah, I don't know if I had maybe like a 1 month test of each, like just pitted, maybe it would be different. Like maybe like put each other in several different matches. I will say though, actually, when I played with the Pure 23 in a practice doubles match, for some reason, like I wasn't able to quite hone in the power.
Mhm.
I don't know why. It was yeah. I mean, like when I was hitting with it, it felt quite good, just a bit dampened. But that particular match, I was kind of spraying some balls, and I felt a bit more control with the T-Fight. So yeah, so that was a really fun matchup, and the PA23 is definitely a great racket, a really nice update too. Again, like I said, like pretty easy to play with. And I remember when I was playing singles, a singles practice set with it, I was able to finish points like much easier. But yeah, so I will put this one aside. Oh, jeez. And then the last semifinal match, obviously only two, is the Solinco whiteout against the VCore Pro 97. And for this one, I once again chose the whiteout. I just felt like I got more shape on the ball, just more spin. Obviously you can see I'm going with like the rackets that have a white paint job. Maybe that's all it is, really. Maybe. I mean, I like the Babolat Pure Control too. It's crazy,
We
but
need to reseed. We'll reseed based on color. We'll do that.
yeah, that would be a great idea. The Boom Pro, I guess, is screwed, but yeah. So I like the whiteout, and I mean, VCore Pro again is nice too, but I do think it is fairly valid that you'll get more spin with the whiteout. So but yeah, any thoughts on that matchup there?
Um,
Did it
no,
surprise you?
I think when I saw earlier in the bracket, when I saw the T-Fight and Solinco both kind of advance in past their first rounds, I kind of thought that it just seemed to me like the rackets that maybe you were preferring were, like you mentioned, kind of giving you something that you felt like you were missing. And so I would say the VCore Pro 97 is a great racket. I would also say it might not be giving you much different than what you've got going on right now. And sometimes when you're looking for a new racket, you want to either amplify what you've got, meaning if you hit killer spin and you want to dominate with even more spin, you might get a racket that can help you with spin. But I feel like what a lot of us are trying to do is kind of plug a hole, or hey, I feel like I'm leaking points because guys are hitting big, and I'm not stable enough at contact, so I'm leaving something short. And so there's really no wrong way. I think you've ended up kind of with two, remarkably similar spec rackets. Nothing against the VCore Pro. I still think very versatile, a really good racket for a creative player. I just think you've really done a good job of kind of, stability seems to be like a key thing for you. Stability with spin. And so, yeah, I'm excited about the finals. I think it's a good, it's going to be a whiteout, whichever you're rooting for. It's going to be, the stands are going to be all decked out in the white tees.
Yeah, that's true. I should start wearing all white tees myself. So yeah, just really interesting as well. I mean, we've got two here, two
So let's do a
305. So
tail of the tape real quick. So this is the finals. Or do you have another
uh
slide, or are we good?
oh, I have another slide.
Okay, okay. Before you pull up that slide, let's kind of do a little preview here. So,
Yeah.
and I don't have them in front of me, but so you got 305. It's about 10.8 strung, unstrung, makes them about 11.4 strung. Both higher swing weights, and I think about 4 points headlight. The one difference here is that the Technofiber has kind of that RS beam. It's sort of it really is like kind of the cross section of the beam is almost shaped like an R. Kind of this, it's actually, I think, 5-sided in a way. But what that means is it's sort of a blend of flat beam with a more round beam, which is basically control mixed with power. Um, and then the Solinco has that more kind of traditional flat beam design, kind of similar to the Blade. It's flatter. I would say maybe it's slanted a little bit more towards control. So that's kind of my tail of the tape. They're very, very similar spec rackets. I think ultimately the FEEL word is what it's going to come down to.
Very correct. Thank you. This great preview here, and good to highlight the main difference there. So let me unshare this bracket so I don't spoil it for you all, in the beginning, and then get the right one on. Here it is. All right. So
It's a whiteout.
it's a whiteout. You were correct, Sam. So yes. So it's hard to really pinpoint a lot of differences, really. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I just felt a little bit like, I just like the feel a bit more, probably the traditional feel of the whiteout. I did feel like I was getting some more spin. And I did feel like it was maybe slightly more maneuverable if I remember right, but I honestly not even sure. I think it's just mainly the feel of it. And the ball shape that I was getting with the spin. So I really liked the whiteout, and it's kind of funny. Like I mentioned, I had tried the whiteout previous to this test just on its own, and I liked it at the time. And I don't know if that caused any preconceived notions. I tried to not let it do that, but I did like the whiteout just a tad bit better. So yeah, I mean, there's that. That's the winner. I mean, it's interesting though. I really like the whiteout a lot. It helps with the stability that I don't have on the Pura VS 2017, and like you mentioned, Sam, like I think especially when I play like 5-0 doubles and some singles, that's when I feel like my racket could get pushed around a little bit more. But there's still, that with the whiteout, I did feel like I have to work harder on the swing. Like you mentioned, there's a little more swing weight there. So I do miss like some of the free power. And I don't know if maybe that's something that I can get through tinkering with the strings and the tension a bit. So the whiteout is the winner. I'm,
I think
yeah.
one of the things I didn't really say is, the Technofiber T-Fight, it's got that 18-19 pattern, which
Yes.
it's not an 18-20, but it's a pretty dense pattern. And so with the whiteout 16-19, like it stands to reason, just, you're gonna get a little more rotation. They're both a little higher in swing weight, but I just feel like with that open pattern, you might have just found like that right mix of, yeah, it's a little bit less maneuverable, but the string pattern's more open too. So maybe you kind of get a little bit more spin. As far as, you're talking about playing doubles, like you think about doubles, right? Like, you're hitting a lot of returns and it's important. Your targeting is important. You're trying to hit a section of the court. You can't really just play a return through the middle like you could in singles to sort of neutralize a tough serve. So, whereas, maybe in singles sometimes a lighter, faster frame can end up being better. In doubles, that stability on a return can often mean maybe you can beat that net person on a cross.
Mm.
Somebody hits a heavy serve, maybe that stability helps you squeak it past the net person who's poaching. So that can be a very real thing. Serves and returns in doubles, that. I mean, it's the
Yeah.
first two shots of the point almost always are dictating how that's going to go.
Yeah.
You could one of the things I was going to recommend is if you felt like maneuverability was a thing. I know you play Hyper G. You might even try like some thinner gauges.
Mm.
You could do that, and you'd be surprised how you can sort of manipulate the swing weight there. You can take I don't know, do you play the 17 gauge or the 16
Actually,
gauge?
16L actually.
Okay, so I think you'd be very surprised just for fun to try, like, I think they might have a 120, which is maybe 17, or maybe I think they might even have a 20 gauge Hyper G, which is pretty crazy there.
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised how you can kind of manipulate that swing weight down a few points. And I'd be kind of curious to see ultimately what you settle on, or if you just appreciated that, kind of little bit more tilt towards stability and maybe a little bit less on the mobility side of things.
Yeah, great thoughts. That is true. It's amazing how much of a difference like a thinner versus thicker gauge string can be. I remember with my PRO VS, like I used a 16, and then for some reason my arm like started hurting, and then I went to 17, and then all of a sudden all my balls were like flying out. Then I
Mhm.
went to 16L and everything was perfect. So it's really
Right.
interesting how that works. So yeah, I mean, there you have it. It's this Linka Whiteout 305 is the winner of this test. Really want to thank Tennis Express and Sam for facilitating this demo of all these rackets, and definitely check out their demo program. We'll have links to Tennis Express's demo program on the show notes page and underneath this video on YouTube. I will say it's tough though. My current racket still has like a unique sort of feel, and maybe it's softer because I've been playing with it so long. um it still would be a little bit tough to switch to it. I wish I could like combine my racket with the whiteout, but as you mentioned, there's some things I can do to try to make it be a bit more maneuverable. And scary question, Sam, but I mean, given that 2023, like obviously there's new rackets coming out and are out, are, are there any other rackets that you think I would potentially like to try, or that maybe the audience would want to know about?
Well, we had new radicals launched in January, and the radicals are always very, very versatile frames from
Yeah.
head. The MP is a little bit more user friendly of those
Mm.
frames, and we really enjoyed our play test on the radicals. Even one kind of a sleeper was the FX 500 series from Dunlop. I feel like the last generation of those was maybe a little bit just too focused on power. It's just very, very powerful, and they seem to sort of hit their stride with this batch. There's a lot of power, but they're comfortable frames. They kind of are. I feel like they've kind of figured out what they want that silo to be. And then we got a new pro staff, which
Mm.
is always exciting. Kind of the first post Federer pro staff. And a really interesting model they did there was it's the same weight as the Pro Staff 97. It's a 100 square inch head, and it's the Pro Staff X. So what they've done is they've sort of taken the same beam of the Pro Staff, and they've basically said, hey, how about a 100 square inch Pro Staff 97?
Mm.
It's a little bit more maneuverable, but there's a lot of us out there that fancy ourselves, good enough for that 11.1 ounce unstrung weight. That maybe have targeted the 97, but that Pro Staff X is a really good option, and it should give people a lot of tough choices. Kind of moving into the year. The other kind of shocker frame was the shift from Wilson,
Mm.
and it's kind of a different. It looks like it's going to be their spin franchise, but they're kind of doing a limited release right now with an early cosmetic, and there's going to be a bigger launch later on this year. So more to come on that front.
Nice, nice. Very nice, Sam. So, yeah, I just want to give one more close up of the winner here. I've got the white out, and this is actually my frame I use right now. Trying to get in the frame.
Nice.
So yeah, there it is. So Sam, I really want to thank you very much, and hopefully we can, I'm sure we'll be in contact in the future. But again, really appreciate you and Tennis Express for facilitating this demo. And is there anywhere that you want the audience? And I mentioned we'll have links down here, but anywhere that you want to point the audience to as well?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say tennisexpress.com. Right in our drop down, our demo page is right there. And then, Tennis Express on YouTube, we're always publishing new racket review content. We've started some new things. We're doing sort of racket families and talking about each model and whose game style that could work best for. There's a lot of exciting products coming out, and at Tennis Express, we just want customers to be able to find what they need for their game to have the most fun they can on the court.
Yeah, definitely. You all are doing a great job, and appreciate it once again. So, yeah, thanks so much, Sam. I'll see you again very soon, and all the best to you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. All right. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode with Sam from Tennis Express. And this one certainly was a bit different. I usually cover the technical, tactical, mental, and fitness advice and strategies that will help you improve your game. Today was more on the equipment front, which I really do enjoy, as of course we all do like shiny new tools or our old tools, as in, my case with my racket as well. So yeah, just a really fun adventure. And, like I mentioned, the Slinko Whiteout 305 did win out, but we'll see if I do end up switching, because there's always these endless streams of rackets coming out, but certainly at some point you do have to make a decision. So I'll keep you updated if I do permanently switch to that one, or if that is not the case. But certainly still enjoying my current racket as well. Just would like a bit more from it in certain areas like stability, as I mentioned. But anyways, thanks so much for listening, and I would really appreciate it if you'd leave a review for the show on Apple Podcasts, and you can do that at tennisfiles.com/Apple Podcasts with an S at the end. That would be the biggest help in terms of which platform to leave a review. But of course, I appreciate a review on any platform that's used to listen to the show. And I'd also like to leave you with a quote, as I do at the end of every show. And this one is by Robert Louis Stevenson. And Robert said, "Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant." Very true, especially, for example, when you're trying to change your technique and, it's especially in the early stages and you don't see any results right away. I mean, that's the problem with a lot of us. We just want, quick fixes and whatnot. But in many cases, you just keep working hard, head down, and then one day it's going to click. It's kind of like the visual of the two people in the caves, or like the miners who are like, just chipping away, and like you see one that gives up and leaves when they're only like, a couple more hacks away from the gold, whereas the other one keeps hacking and then finds the gold. So yeah, I hope that quote inspires you to keep working. And yeah, with that, thanks so much for listening, and I'll also hope to see you on Tennis Summit 2023, a quick plug for that as well. That's going to be happening on April 17th, about a month, tad more than a month from when the show comes out. And I'll send more information about that as the weeks go by, but would love to see you there. And we've got a great lineup coming up. And so, yeah, I'll have links to anything that I mentioned on the show today, and you can check that out on the show notes page. So have a great one, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Tennis Files podcast. This is your host, Mirabana Ranchad, signing out.